Hey, and welcome to the first edition of Ask Pastor Matt Anything. I got a couple different questions we're going to try to answer. I'm going to share with you. The first one, okay, it's going to be deep. It's going to be involved, but it's not going to be serious. So stick around for the next one. We'll get a little more serious here in a minute. So the first question comes from Derek, and he wants to know, what is the average airspeed velocity of an unladen swallow? Okay, deep question. That is a question that's plagued mankind for decades. Okay, and so we have to look at the math. We've got to go to the physics of this, and so we have to look at a velocity equation where velocity is equal to, right, the change in rate, okay, divided by the change in time, right? Now, I'm sure everyone knows the velocity equation. I don't need to put numbers in. You're like, oh yeah, Pastor Matt, we're so familiar with the velocity equation. We learned that. Yeah, no problem. We also have to look at, okay, here's another equation, okay, frequency, frequency of the wing beats, right? That's going to be multiplied by the amplitude, amplitude of the wing beats as well. So how many wing beats, the thrust of the wing beats, all over speed, or again rate. Okay, and so here we go. We got our two equations. I know you're fascinated. You're like, finally, someone's answering this question. Just take my word for it. We plug numbers in. Here's what we get. We get 24 miles per hour. Love that chalk sound. I know you do too at home. So we've answered that question. That was fast. Like, Pastor, that's amazing. I know. Thank you. You're welcome. That's not really what we want to know, though, because what we really want to know, and the question that didn't really come, is we want to know about the migrational patterns of coconuts, right? Isn't that what all this really is about, right? So there is my coconut, okay? Now, coconuts can't migrate on their own, can they? But swallows can. Not African swallows, but European swallows definitely can migrate. So how can a coconut migrate with the help of a European swallow? Well, if we look at a ratio of 1 to 1, a coconut that is 1 pound, okay, 1 pound, okay, that's what, 16 ounces. The average European swallow is 5 ounces. And so if we do a 1-to-1 ratio, we are going to need 5 swallows, right, per every 1 coconut. And that's how coconuts migrate in Monty Python in the Search for the Holy Grail. You're welcome. Stay tuned for a little more serious Q&A time. Thanks. Hey, welcome back. Glad you stuck around. I know that first question maybe caught you off guard. So here's a couple better questions. Now, both these come from Charles. And Charles, your first question, something about the viability of new markets as it pertains to breeding insects and biomass quantity production. I have no idea. I just kind of made all that up. So you're on your own because you don't want my advice. But you asked a good question. Question number 2, where do dinosaurs fit into creation? Right? So I thought, hey, we'll talk about dinosaurs for a few minutes. In fact, I was able to go to the source on this. Maybe you saw my interview in that picture just previous to the video. Just want you to know that, hey, I go and I get the real information for you guys. That's what I do here, right? And so let's talk real quick about dinosaurs. So reading about dinosaurs, kind of brushing up, I thought it was interesting. The question I ran into first was, are dinosaurs real? I thought, well, I don't know, it's kind of an interesting question. Way to start it off. Are dinosaurs real? We see a lot of movies about dinosaurs, and there's a lot of fictional things about dinosaurs, so we'll start there. Are dinosaurs real? And I would say, yeah, they're very much real. We get evidence in the fossil record. We see evidence, again, even from Scripture. Some of these things we talk about Behemoth and Leviathan. I think these are references to really big creatures that God created that he had control over, and I think in a lot of ways they're references to what we would call a modern day dinosaur. So dinosaurs are real. They're part of God's creation. We see evidences of those today in the fossil record. We also, I think, again, see evidence in Scripture as well. And so a couple questions that go along with that, right? So if dinosaurs are real and they really existed, when did they exist, right? Kind of where do they come from, and why aren't they here anymore? Well, they were part of creation. That's where they came from. I'm going to look at this from a young Earth perspective. So we're going to say that Earth is somewhere around 6,000 to 10,000 years old. If you're an old Earth creationist, hey, we still get along. We can have great conversations, and you can even respond to this with some of your own ideas. But in the young Earth, I would say that dinosaurs fit into the literal 6 days of creation. They were created by God, and they were part of creation, right? They were here before the fall, and they were here after the fall as well. Now, where did dinosaurs go? Why don't we have, dinosaurs as we see them in the fossil record in the movies? Why don't we have those today? And I think a lot of it has to do with the flood. Right? Before the flood, the earth was a certain way. It was different than it is today. It was almost kind of like a giant herpetarium. Maybe you've had reptiles in your home. You got to keep a certain humidity and a certain temperature. Well, if there was a water shield, there's a lot more water in the atmosphere. If the earth maybe wasn't tilted on its axis like it is today, some of these things that we believe happened during the flood, it would have been prime living conditions for giant reptiles and really all of creation. Right? It would have been great to sustain life. When things change with the flood, post-flood, you have conditions where the habitat for dinosaurs would have been greatly reduced. Whereas large reptiles need these environments that stay consistently warm and have, again, good humidity. Those are going to be harder to find. They're going to be kind of a narrow band, maybe around the equator, where dinosaurs could still survive. And so when you reduce habitat and human population increases and we tend to become hunters, right? When you have more predators and less habitat, over time what you're going to see is you're going to see certain animals disappear. And that happens a lot in the record. So where did dinosaurs go? Well, I believe basically because of habitat loss, right, and predatory instincts by men and other animals. Basically, they got hunted out. Now, when we go and look at dinosaurs and we go to the internet and look at dinosaurs, we see a lot of things about 65 million years ago. We see things about comets destroying them and all these different things. And a lot of that's tied to evolution. So I'll take a quick moment to talk about how evolution would play into this. So if you go and look at dinosaurs from a secular point of view, they existed a long time ago. Basically, evolution chose them to die off, and other animals evolved and kind of took their place. Well, that all is kind of based on a macro evolution view where animals change into other animals. And we don't have evidence for that. When people talk about stuff like that, what they do is they use microevolution, which would be like speciation and variation. The fact that you don't look like your parents and your kids don't necessarily look like you. Similarities, sure, but every generation kind of has its own unique traits. Things do change over time, and that's what evolution says, but it doesn't necessarily mean they change into something completely different. So I believe the dinosaurs were part of creation. Right? I believe they existed with man. I believe that because of habitat loss and some other factors, they died out like a lot of other animal species probably did and still do today. Right? And it's not a factor of evolution. It's not a factor that they change into other things or billions and millions of years past. It's just a product of the fall in a broken world that doesn't operate the way that God designed it to in the beginning. Now, there's a lot of other things you can look at for dinosaurs, invest a lot of time in dinosaurs. I encourage you to do it. If you're quarantined, you're stuck at home, go investigate some of that. You'll find a lot of evidence on the other side. They say, oh, none of that creation stuff is true, but you find a lot of evidence that supports a creationist view of how dinosaurs fit into the timeline. So go investigate that, draw yourself some dinosaurs. You probably won't draw as good as mine. Don't be afraid to try. Right? But thank you guys for sticking around, and maybe that, and again, give you some information and ask me some more questions. I need more questions to answer. Thanks, guys.